How bad was sex education in high school? It was the worst. That's why we wanted to start this podcast. Dr. Stormy and I knew that there are so many folks out there that want to learn more, that want to start conversations, that want to be vulnerable and express their feelings, emotions, wants, and desires. And that's what Sex 101 is about. Dr. Stormy has spent so much time working with couples, working with men and women. I myself have worked with lots of men talking about relationships and sex and where we're at today with our sexuality. So come join us. This is going to be a great episode, just like all Sex 101 episodes. You're going to learn a lot, you're going to laugh a lot, and we're going to have a great time. Okay, another great episode coming you guys' way. How you doing, Stormy?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Today is No Sex Drive, Now What? And this one's interesting because a lot of times, I mean, it does seem somewhat of a myth that it's always just the lady doesn't want to have sex and her husband does. You know, I'm sure, like I've talked with you now enough to know, like you talk to it's across the board. Anybody can have a low sex drive or a high sex drive. It doesn't, just matter if you're a boy or girl or whatever you identify as. And so we thought this would be a good episode because this can be another one of those touchy subjects. Like our last episode was how to say no. That can be tough. And there's a lot of people, you don't want to hurt your partner's feelings in a healthy relationship when you say no. So if you haven't checked out that episode, please check it out. But this is another one because, your partner might have a lower sex drive than you or a higher sex drive than you, and how to navigate that in a healthy way so that both of you feel fulfilled and loved and cared for is really important.
Yeah, totally. And I think I so appreciate you bringing some light to that, because my whole thing is one of the things I'm very passionate about is like, let's just get away from, well, I want sex and she doesn't, or he wants sex and I don't, or I want sex and he doesn't, instead of this whole, like, because now you're like against each other. Whereas really, like, you're wanting to be more connected, to have sex together, to be able to have this great intimacy together. So looking at it instead of like he or she said, he said, she wants, she doesn't want, that really like divides us, rather than looking at it as like, there's this thing, which is a difference in sex drive. That's the challenge, not her or him, right? So if we can move away from the blaming of her or him, or I have a sex drive, I want it all the time, she doesn't, or he wants it all, she wants it all the time and I never do, or all these things that happen relationally, instead of looking at it as like understanding sex drive and how that works. And we at Sex 101, we're all about giving you information, education to help you lead the sexy, amazing, love-filled life that you deserve. So, it is also, that being said, it is very common in relationships to have a difference in sex drive. And I would say it's almost inevitable at some point, right?
Yeah.
Because sex drive isn't a static point. It's not like, oh, I have a 9 sex drive and it's always a 9 and it always will be a 9. And my partner has a 4 sex drive and it's always, it doesn't work that way. So it's just very unlikely that your sex drive will match up exactly the same at the exact same moment on the exact same day of the week and time of the day, right? So you will in relationship need to learn to navigate differences in sex drive. And we want you to navigate it consciously and thoughtfully, rather than just be like, oh, this is just how it is in relationship, because it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and everything in a relationship, you have to kind of navigate and figure out. Like, somebody oftentimes is a little cleaner than the other one. They like they do laundry more, or want the house a little bit cleaner, or somebody sleeps in, somebody wakes up early. All of these things. Sex is one component of a healthy relationship, and so all of these things are sex is one where you do want to be able to have these conversations and talk about it, and once again figure out the whys and the hows and the wins and all of that stuff, so that you can have great conversations and not to build that resentment. Because a lot of times, to me, the men that I've spoken to, like at some of the men groups I've led, the men want to have sex because first they want to be a good lover. It feels good. First of all, having sex can be amazing.
Yeah.
And they want to be great lovers, and then they feel real rejection from their wives or their spouses. Like they really do, are like, you don't want me. You only want me once a month, or even then, do you
Mhm.
want, like it can just be a real rejection, which can lead to resentment. And so having these
Yeah,
conversations and
totally.
understanding, wait a minute, of course I love you. I do want you. I wish I wanted you more. This is how I'm feeling. That conversation alone can be so powerful to your spouse.
Absolutely. No, I love that. Thanks for bringing that to light because, yeah, having, right, we say this literally in every episode in some way. It is all about communication. So if you're in partnership and you're listening or watching this episode, have you ever had a conversation with your partner about your sex drive, about their sex drive? Have you been curious about your sex drives and how they match up or don't match up, right? No judgment, curiosity. And also as you age and as I mean, it does change, right? It changes, by the way, daily, multiple times in the day from individual to individual. So, but when was the last time you had a conversation, if ever, with your partner about your sex drives and how they line up, about what you desire as far as we talked about this in the last episode, but like as far as frequency, what is your desire? What is your partner's desire of frequency of sex? Are you just talking about penetrative sex? What about other kinds of sex? Right? Really having these conversations so that you start to look at sex drive not as a static set point, because it's not, but also not as a problem to overcome. It's actually really something to work with. So we're going to give you 5 tips to help increase your sex drive here in a little bit. But right, so thinking about your sex drive as a practice, what is your own relationship to your desire, right? Sex drive, your libido, your desire to have sex. What just now, live time, take a moment, be like, I actually feel really connected to my sex drive. I have a high sex drive right now. Or you know what? I'm just feeling really disconnected from myself and my pleasure. And sex is the last thing on my mind right now. Just getting curious about yourself, then bringing that curiosity to your partner and leading and having the conversations about it. Already you're building intimacy and connection, which is one thing that helps with sex drive.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I want to say too, I was just thinking about this while we were talking. If you have a high sex drive, you don't have to have any shame in that either. Like
Totally.
yeah, I have felt that before, that I was like, oh, I guess I just want sex too much or something. And I wish I would have had that conversation with myself. Hey, wait a minute. This is who you are. And if if you want to have sex or don't want to have sex, both of those are feelings that you can honor and you can share with your partner. And we're not, we're definitely not promoting like forcing sex or just having sex to have sex or let's just get it done.
No,
But having those feelings, that is a part of who you are. Just like
totally.
it's who you are, so you can honor that in a good way. And it's okay to talk
Right.
about, I do have a higher sex drive, or I do have
Right.
a less of a sex drive. Have those
I'd say honor
conversations.
it and own it, right? Whether
Yeah.
you have a high sex drive or a low sex drive, or you notice your own sex drive changing, like there's no good or bad or wrong or right. It's just where you are in relationship to your desire to have sex. And I think when we stop shaming ourselves or our partner for where their sex drive is or is not, that's a huge step in the right direction to build those connections. And again, if you're listening, you're like, oh my God, I don't remember the last time I felt my sex drive. Okay, because I work with lots of clients like that as well. Um, just know that there's nothing broken. It's not like your
Mm.
desire to have sex is broken or is gone. It's just your connection to it is less than it has been at other times. So, how is your own connection to your sex drive feeling for you? That's where you start getting curious about, wondering about, asking yourself, and then reach out. I mean, there's books, there's coaches, there's therapists. It's something that you can practice and work on. And we're going to give you a few tips here, just kind of holistic tips, but I think if you start thinking of it as a practice and as a relationship, not something you have or don't have, that's hugely helpful. So I guess the next question I would ask you is, how does it feel for you? Maybe you're like, you know what, I have no sex drive right now, but that works for me in my life and in my partnership, and I'm all good. That is great. That's different than being
Hmm.
like, oh my God, I don't remember what it's like to want a sex, and I want to have sex, right? So how is it feeling for you? How is it feeling in your partnership? Have you had conversations with your partner about this? This is all part of how you work with sex drive.
Yep, 100%. Have those conversations. Start with yourself. That's what I'm saying. You
Yeah,
start in a place of no shame, no fear, nowhere. Like start with loving yourself and going, this is how I really feel, and I want to figure out the
right.
why of it.
Yeah, totally. And then I would say, if you're like, oh my gosh, have a low sex drive or high, and it's like concerning to me or whatever, rule out medical issues with your physician for lower sex drive. Like there's different medications and many conditions that can contribute to low sex drive.
Mm.
So rule those out or be aware of those if those are contributing. And if those are not contributing, sex drive is complicated. It's got relational aspects. It's got psychological aspects. It has physiological aspects, right? It changes as we age and hormonal. I mean, there's so many things that play into our sex drive. It is not just one thing, and it is not a set point, right? So the more we understand that, and let's say we've ruled out medical issues or medication side effects that impact our sex drive, then it's like gives me an invitation to work with it and to play with it and to invite it back in and to develop my relationship with my own sex drive, because we are all sexual beings in varying degrees of connection with that at different times in our life.
Yep, 100%. I think too, and recognizing all of this as normal. Like when you go on that third date and you're just hot and heavy, you don't really know that much about each other, and the sex can be fun, and you're just like, oh, we're learning this now about each other, and we're doing this. I stayed over the night or whatever, and then fast forward, 3, 5, 10 years later, you know everything about this person or a lot about them rather, and so
Yeah,
and so things can get a little stale or dull, and you might not even know why, or you might not understand why you're not feeling as sexually turned on as much. And so just really thinking this through, like your whys of why do I feel this way? Why don't I want to have sex? Or why do I want to have sex all the time? Whatever that might
right.
be, just recognizing those things really will help you with your partner.
Totally.
I just notice so many men struggle with insecurity and some resentment because they feel rejected, and and oftentimes men just the creatures of wanting an answer. Give me an answer and I can accept it. I mean, even if it
Yeah,
hurts a lot
right.
of times.
Exactly.
And
Male
so,
brain. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think that can be just really helpful understanding yourself and why you're feeling that way, and that it's normal. Like we said, there's no shame
Right.
here. It's normal. It's normal for your sex drive to wane or to rev back up or wherever you're at. Like you were saying,
Right.
Storm.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that, because like right, you just mentioned about someone might feel rejected, or this is becoming a pattern. It's like, so let's say let's say we're in a male female relationship and I'm the one wanting less sex and my partner's feeling rejected, right? Like by my being curious about my own sex drive and my lower desire to have sex with my partner, is there something relationally going on? Is it my connection? I'm not feeling good about my body. We'll get into some tips in a minute, but like, am I sleeping like shit? Whatever. Like, then I can share with my partner of like, hey, like, it's not you, or it is you, right? Like, I mean, not that that's their fault, but like, or I'm feeling resentment because we haven't repaired from this fight we had a month ago, whatever it might be. Like, so like, again, when you're leaning in and building connection and intimacy, even in your mismatched libido, rather than making assumptions about your partner and leaning out, right? So
Yeah.
even because this will at some point likely be a concern in your relationship. I mean, it's not always, but it's very likely at some point. I mean, again, you may even have like surgery and not be able to have sex for a certain period of
Right.
time. I mean, life is complicated,
Yeah. Yeah.
and sex is complicated too. It's amazing and complicated all at once. So,
Well, all right. You want to get into some tips that you have?
yep. Let's do 5
Okay.
ways to increase your sex drive. So holistically. So move your beautiful body. So exercise. Okay. That doesn't have to mean like go to Crusher Peloton class or whatever. It just means move your body in a way that feels nourishing, restorative, that gives you some good exercise benefit. So exercise has been very well documented to contribute to your libido.
Hmm. I
Okay.
totally
So
agree. You feel better about yourself too. Like, I always feel so much better when I go, I did work out. Wow. I needed it
totally.
mentally and
Yep.
emotionally. It even helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the second one is sleep, right? Sleep has been really well studied. Like if you're getting shitty sleep, figure out why you're getting shitty sleep, right? So the healthy sleep, we don't when we're think about it, when you're exhausted, it's just literally a survival tactic. Like that's why sleep deprivation is literally a form of torture. Like sex probably isn't the first thing on your mind. Likely isn't the first thing on your mind. A good night's sleep is, right? So noticing your sleep, looking at your sleep, finding ways like minimizing your screen time before bed, watching your caffeine intake in the afternoons and on, right? Different sleep hygiene strategies, we call it, but ways to promote healthy sleep patterns and routines. And so your sleep contributes to your sex drive.
I totally believe that. Yeah, if you're tired and not getting rest, it wrecks your whole world. Obviously, it would mess up your sex.
Yeah. And then like, again, when it comes to sex, based on your sleep, like are you wanting someone who's wanting desiring sex in the morning or physical intimacy in the morning? Or are you an evening person? What's your partner? And have you had conversations about that? Right. So we have, and there's some signs that men prefer sex at a different, anyway, but how is it in your relationship?
Yeah, perfect.
So look at your sleep. And then the third one, which is can also be related to sleep, is what's your stress level like? So for most people, stress is a pleasure buster. It is really hard to be drenched in cortisol and feeling turned on
Yeah.
for most people. And then about stress, I always like to say, but have a conversation. So, because what is your partner's response to stress and how it impacts their sexual desire, their libido, their sex drive? So, for some people, many people, more people, stress is a pleasure buster. When they are stressed out, they are not feeling particularly sexual. But for some people, sex is the perfect stress reliever. And when they are stressed, they really want sex. So, what's your response to sex? What's to stress? Excuse me. And what's your partner's? And understanding that is a really great place to start in having those conversations.
Yeah. And the sooner you have those conversations, the better. Like, I mean, there's no reason to hold off on those conversations for months or years or anything like that. When really sit down with yourself, figure out what you are like. How do you handle stress? And that's even great for even outside the bedroom, outside of sex. I mean, like,
Totally.
how do you handle stress? Do you need to be alone? Do you need to go punch a wall? Are you what kind of person? How do you deal with
Exactly.
it? And what is the way that you can deal with stress that's healthy for both of us in this relationship?
Totally. Hmm. Absolutely. And then the fourth tip is looking at your diet, right? So there's not any research that a certain diet or way of eating promotes sex drive more than others, but overall healthy eating, less processed foods, less sugar, more whole foods is having a well-rounded, healthy diet will also help you to feel more in touch with your sex drive.
Yeah, there's nothing like a great meal, a good healthy meal. Like when you're making fun stuff. Like I'm doing kind of lower carb right now, and we made these
Uh-huh.
salmon patties with pork rind.
Yum.
And it was just instead of like bread, we used pork rinds just to try it. I saw it on TikTok or something, and I was like, "This is so fun," because I wanted to stay lower carb,
Yeah,
and I was able to do it and do something fun. And so it actually gave me just a real joy. Like we were just eating
totally.
it. When you eat food, sometimes it feels like a turn on for sure.
Yeah.
So
And we've done an episode on an aphrodisiac, so you can
yeah,
watch that episode. But there is some interesting, not a lot of research, but a lot of anecdotal and some research about. But food is mainly about eating healthy, eating better, feeling good, and I think that goes a lot to your relationship to your body love, which is another tip. But what's your relationship like with your body? Most of us feel better about our body and our body love when we're eating better.
100%. Totally. The better you feel about your body, the more you can love yourself and go, this is who I am, and I'm going to love this, the better you will be for sure.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And that actually brings me to the fifth tip, which is relationship quality, right? So if you're noticing over time that your desire to have sex with your partner and your just desire to feel your own turn on, your own sexual energy is lower, just look at your relationship. What's the quality of your relationship? What is intimacy like in other realms? Are you carrying around resentments? That's not there's no shame in that, but noticing, right? Is it, what is the relationship quality? Because we say this and we just said this in a bunch of episodes. So what happens outside the bedroom shows up in the bedroom. What happens in life shows up in the bedroom. What happens in the bedroom shows up in life, right? So what is the relationship quality? Are there areas of resentment? Are there areas where you're harboring past traumas that could negatively be impacting your sex drive, your desire to have sex with your partner?
Awesome. All right, I have a question. That we got through all the tips, right? Was there any more?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No,
I have a question. If you're experiencing low sex drive, what do you think about like is it just with your partner? Like, what about like masturbation, just to see how turn like where your mind goes? Like, what do you think about that?
totally.
Like trying like
Yeah,
revving your own engine a little bit just to see where you're at.
absolutely. It's so funny. I literally almost said that about self pleasure. So I'm so glad you asked that. We're great minds think alike. But yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things when I'm working with a client, or myself or anyone with sex drive. It's is it only sex with your partner that you're not finding erotic? And that's okay. No shame, no judgment there. Or are you feeling turned on by, let's say, someone that walks by or something you see on TV, or your own desire to self pleasure, to masturbate? Right. So, what is your connection to your sexual energy outside of sex with your partner? And noticing if those are both depleted, or if there's different than the other. And absolutely, you said revving your own engine, but what's your relationship like with masturbation right now? Is that different for you? Has that always been that way? Do you find that you used to self pleasure multiple times a week and now you don't remember the last time you did it? Right. This is all just information for you. So absolutely looking at your relationship to your sexual energy, to your own self-pleasuring, and to just your turn on.
I love that. Practice.
Yes, practice, practice,
Yeah.
practice, practice.
Practice, practice, practice. All right, let's get to Stump Stormy.
It's time to Stump Stormy.
Okay, let's see if you can get this one. Death during sex is more common than you might think. What percentage of all sudden deaths occur during sexual intercourse? What percentage do you think?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm gonna let you in a little dark part of Stormy. I'm like, I hope I go out with a bang, like an actual bang. Like I would love to go out while having an orgasm. Like if I'm gonna go out, like what a great way to go out. So I can't, I can't believe I just shared that in this podcast. But for real, that would be like the good way. So I'm not, obviously not at all saying that that's a good way for most people, but for me, if I had to put that, that would be high on the list. So, I'm going to guess what percent of sudden deaths are during sexual intercourse. I'm going to guess like 11%.
No, that's too high. It's about 0.6%. So
Oh,
it's
way
not even
high.
1%, but still that still is a lot because that statistic means that 1 in every 200 sudden deaths comes during sex. So it's
Oh,
more than you
really?
think. You know what I mean?
It's
Like
so
when
funny
you
because I'm so bad with percentages, but 1 in
yeah,
200 seems,
a lot.
yeah,
That
seems like
seems
which
pretty.
is
I mean, there's 200 people near you right now. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like,
exactly. No,
so
I mean, and it's also why they're careful after
yeah,
and I think we've talked about some of the other episodes about after a heart attack, having sex, some listener questions, right? You do want to be careful.
right.
It is cardiovascular. Um, and I'm not at all minimizing the death during sex, but it is this little dark part of me that's like, well, there's
Yeah,
orgasm wouldn't be a bad way to close this chapter of life.
I don't know. That sounds pretty fun to me too. All right, let's get to some listener questions.
Have a question? We've got answers. Here's this week's listener question.
People always talk about the size of penises, but I was wondering if vaginas vary in size as much as penises do. And this comes from how far does the rabbit hole go?
So vagina is like the inside canal because we often use the word vagina like incorrectly, right? So the vulva as the exterior structures and also including the vagina. Um, but the vulvas vary a lot in shape, color, and size. They vary tremendously in shape, color, and size. The vagina often is similar in shape, but it has a difference in length. And then the labia, the inner and outer labia, vary significantly from vagina body person to vagina body person. So vulva body person. So yeah, so there is a huge variety at that, and I think similar to how men are often worried about like, does my penis look normal? Women have that same concern, right? Vagina vulva body people have that same concern of like, is this normal? So there's actually like there's been artists that have done really cool like art installations about how different vulvas can look so that we can start to normalize that your vulva is beautiful and amazing, right? And there is a lot of variety.
Awesome. So yeah, there's all kinds of different sizes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. My girlfriend sometimes sings little songs out loud while we're having sex. She
Hmm.
says she's just enjoying it, but it's distracting. Do I tell her this or just accept she's enjoying sex with me? And this comes from It's Me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. I was thinking if somebody sang that while I was having sex with them, I don't know what I would do. It would be distracting.
Oh, it's such a great question. And thanks, listener, for saying this. And I really felt that. Like, I could see the endearing part and also the distracting part for you. Like, I was like
Yeah.
giggling as I was reading this. But, do I tell her? I mean, so my answer is always going to be yes to communication. But it can be a both and. So yes, you can tell her, and you can also make sure to tell her how much you love that she's enjoying sex with you, right? So just stop doing that, for example, which you wouldn't say, but let's say that is very different than saying, I really want to be present with you when I'm making love to you, and your adorable singing takes me out of that. And so I love that you're enjoying it, but I'm wondering if we can explore with words or pillow talk or noises so that I can really be present to like ravish you, right? That's very different than being like, please don't do that. That's annoying or that's distracting, right? So
Yeah.
how you to say that to her, and then just see if she's up for words. Be like, I love that you're enjoying sex with me. Have you ever explored dirty talk or making noises, right? And then also you can also make it a playful thing to the two of you can agree to like be silent during it, right? So I always am encouraging people to make noise during lovemaking, but it can be just as fun to practice being totally silent during, and that can be kind of a fun, playful way to do that. So you don't want to silence her unless you guys are choosing to do that playfully, but you do want to be more present for her with sex, and this is distracting for you, so it's absolutely worth a conversation, in my opinion.
Yeah. And my suggestion is you should start singing too. Like y'all could do like a duet, like
Oh,
summer loving got me so glad. Summer loving.
oh my God,
That
I
would be
love
pretty
it.
nice.
That's so good. It's
That'd
so
be pretty
good.
good.
It's
Find your
so
yeah, find your
good.
favorite musical and just have that on the background and then
And we always say, right, great to bring laughter into sex. So that would be a surefire way to bring in some laughter for sure. You break into
100%.
summer love.
All right, send in your questions or any topics for the show to you can email Stormy at lovedeeplab.com. You can email me, Toby at marriagesupply.com. You can get 10% off at marriagesupply.com with code sex101. Follow Dr. Stormy on Instagram, Dr. Stormy, the number one, or her TikTok, Touchy Subjects with 3 S's. And Marriage Supplies on Instagram as well, the.marriage.supply. Thank you guys so much. We are enjoying this year so much already. We can't wait for more episodes. Send in those topics. We'd love some juicy topics from you folks. We sure do appreciate it.
Yeah.
And as always, knowledge is power, sex is power.
And the world needs more of both.